Krishna. There's quite a quantity of vraj here from our first speaker. Namavam Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shrunivari Paschatya Deshatarne. In this pranam mantra, recently one of my dear friends and godbrother, Satyadev Prabhu, was speaking on Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja, and he was mentioning how Prabhupada had written his pranam mantra. But he wrote it as a mission statement that we could be clear about what was the order of his spiritual master and how he intended to carry it out. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne. As he was following his guru, he was expanding what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach. He came to annihilate the misconception of Nirvishesha and Shunyavadi. And he also wanted to do it in Paschatya Desh. Come to the Western countries. That's a very complete mission statement. And it's one that is a beacon for all of us that Prabhupada had a clear mission. And because he had a clear mission, he was able to express it very clearly to us, how we could be of assistance. I've then, or since, thought of the ways in which Prabhupada managed the Krishna Consciousness movement, and that is what I've come to think of as mission-driven management. That is that he wanted us to be active in giving people an opportunity to take the Krishna Consciousness through the various means that he gave us, for instance, book distribution and establishing communities so that people could come and immerse themselves in the variety, the vilas of Krishna's pastimes together with the devotees. And that mission can be expanded, as Damodar Vamsidhari Prabhu was saying. What is the effectiveness of this? I had a revelation yesterday as we were conducting one of our reading sessions, and one of the devotees, Dhira Prabhu, who joined us just recently, about 5 days ago I think he came here, and during one of our discussions he said he had gone to Himalaya. Is it Himalaya or Himalaya? Himalaya. He went there to do some bhajan. And he told us that he had gone there and it was pristine. No distractions, clear sky, and air was pure. And in 2 days he became bored and came down here. And he said and looked, as he described his experience, happy to come back into the fold with devotees, the joyous or even raucous Mangalartiks, the Tulsi experience in the morning, the sitting with devotees and having activities throughout the day. And it was a good parallel to what we've been reading as we're here. During the Kartik, we take on a particular number of pages to read. We try to complete something, like this time is completing the third canto. And in Prabhupada's teachings, he describes how we can't do without this association of devotees. So Dhira Prabhu proved it. Thanks, Dhira. Wherever you are, he's behind me. It was such a good experiment. He sincerely went to the Himalaya to hear and chant. And after 2 days, he became bored and came back for the association of devotees. So Prabhupada gave us an unlimited scope for that kind of association and the 64 activities of devotional service that we can engage in constantly. Not so long ago, I was compelled to give initiation to a woman who had grown up in a Baptist family, whose family had been multi-generationally involved in that form of Christianity. And by some miracle over some years, she was able to get enough leeway from her husband, who's a pastor, to come and take initiation. It was at the Dallas temple. And before the initiation took place, I had some correspondence with her husband, who had at least 10 principal complaints, at least. Those are the major ones. So my mind was absorbed in thinking of how to explain Krishna consciousness to one who's oriented towards this form of religion. And I thought about the Baptists and what they do and what their surroundings are like. And my mind really became one with the Baptists before I came to Dallas for the initiation. And when I got there to the Dallas temple, there was taking rest at night, waking up, going to Mangalartik. And I realized what a sensory overload Krishna consciousness is. Because it started with conch shells blowing at 4:30 in the morning. And then there was fire and smoke, scented smoke, and people coming out swabbing my hand with some scent, and then fans going, and music and dancing. And then when we sat down, the lights come up gradually in that temple to reveal paintings of Krishna's pastimes. There he is dancing with young women and playing with his friends. And all the time I'm trying to reconcile this. How will I explain this? And then to the Baptists, because she was coming and also bringing her entire congregation who had never been to a Hare Krishna temple before, the first time. When you prepare for a class and then a new person walks in, you generally downshift and say, we're not our bodies, and so forth. But what do you say when a Baptist congregation comes? I realized at that time that what we've been given by Srila Prabhupada was so complete and desirable that everyone's looking for that. And throughout his books, he explains how we'll never be satisfied with anything less. And one more thing about the pranam mantra is that when I was once traveling extensively with a godbrother to various holy places, we'd go to the deities and we'd both bow down at the same time. We were joined at the hip during that trip, so I could hear what he was saying, he could hear what I was saying. We were both reciting Prabhupada's pranam mantra when we bowed to the various deities. And one day, even as we had our heads on the ground, he turned to me and said, we're in front of various deities, why are we saying Prabhupada's pranam mantra? And I said, you're my senior godbrother, you tell me. And he said, it lets Krishna know who let us in here. And I started thinking about how Prabhupada let us in everywhere. And when we take the pranam mantra with us and present ourselves, we become presentable. Because I'm under this mission, I'm under this person, and this is my identity. We read this morning from Prahlāda Mahārāja. We're trying to pick out verses in which Prahlāda in his prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev talks about bhṛtya-sevām, worshipping the devotees, serving the devotees. And one of the famous verses of Prahlāda Mahārāja, Evaṁ janaṁ nipatitaṁ prabhavāhi-kūpe kāmābhikāmam anuyam prapatan prasaṅgāt kṛtvātmasāt Surarṣiṇā bhagavan gṛhītaḥ soham kathaṁ nu visṛje tava bhṛtya-sevām. He says, and Prabhupada was very fond of this verse, and it fits well with today and the theme of what do we do now, that Prabhupada's no longer physically here, as we often repeat. Evaṁ janaṁ nipatitaṁ, Prahlāda expresses this sense of gratitude that you saved me. My spiritual master saved me from what? From a pit full of snakes. And he says, kāmābhikāmam anuya prapatan prasaṅgāt. I was just following the normal course of activities which leads one after another into this unfortunate well where there's no escape. And then he says, kṛtvātmasāt Surarṣiṇā, but you've purified me. Kṛtvātmasāt. He said, you caused me to come to a higher standard of life. Surarṣiṇā. Who did it? The sage Nārda, my spiritual master. Bhagavan gṛhītaḥ. And then he finishes, soham kathaṁ nu visṛje tava bhṛtya-sevām. So he says then, so how could I give up his service? So the impetus, as we've heard today, for those who have been recipients of this special bequeathment that comes down through disciplic succession that Prabhupada so profusely and munificently distributed to the world, where he set up systems and laid the groundwork so this would go on in perpetuity and would offer everyone the opportunity to enter into this abundantly joyful atmosphere, is to go on with the mission and to wholeheartedly embrace the process itself. So, this is a day of tirubhav where we can then realize what's been left behind for us to take advantage of. And just a short anecdote of what's been left behind and how ample it is. Srila Prabhupada's books. So once there was a controversy here in India. After the devotees first came from America to India, some discovered that there were other books about Krishna available. And they brought them home, or brought them back to the ashram, to which the temple president said, you can't have these and you can't bring them into the temple. That's when the controversy started. And at that time in history, the way to resolve such a controversy was to join a morning walk and one side stand on one side of Prabhupada. I mean, those who had taken one position stand on one side of Prabhupada and the other side would stand on the other side. So Prabhupada would hold open court as he was walking, have some kind of a stereo presentation. And one side said, Prabhupada, they're saying, meaning the temple president and authority, that we shouldn't read the books of the previous acharyas. And Prabhupada said, I have said? I have not said. I said you should read the books of the previous acharyas, but first you should assimilate what you already have. It's on record. And this idea of assimilating what one has intrigued me, because if we just take one aspect of what Srila Prabhupada left behind, that is his books, and then contemplate how one might assimilate what's in the books, I've thought about what it might take. One idea I have is that the amount of energy that Prabhupada gave to writing his books, which is legendary, we might also apply to reading them. What do you think? Only 5 or 6 people said Hari Bol. No, it's just an idea. I'm not saying everybody should do this, but it's a thought experiment that what if you try to assimilate. And what I realized was the more I try to assimilate, the more the content seems to expand. In fact, somebody commented yesterday that they'd read the same purport 4 or 5 times, but they're still finding things in there, even one of which could be life-changing and be a directive for one's life that one might have carved in some kind of tulsi beads and hung around one's neck that one could live by. One could write a PhD thesis on even one canto or one chapter, even one verse. So how would one assimilate? And this goes to the scope of what kind of bequeathment Prabhupada gave us. Sampradaya, after all, means the gift that keeps on giving. And this is Prabhupada's legacy that he gave more than anybody. He organized it so that everyone would have the opportunity to take advantage of the vilas of Krishna consciousness. Should we break out into dance? I'm on my final sentences. Yat pada pankacha palasa vilasya bhakta karmashrayam gṛhītaḥ udgṛhītayanti santa. There's a way in which the Srimad Bhagavatam describes how we need that complete absorption in vilas, in the activities of Krishna. And Prabhupada's given us that. He's given us katha through his whole books. One could read the way Prabhupada wrote them. Get up at midnight, read all night long, take a little rest, have, I don't know, what could you have? A little japati, and then start reading again. We'd never come to the end of it. What to speak of all the other activities he's given us. I concur with what everyone said earlier, so I hope I get credit for that. And it's a desire of mine, if we could have this kind of a meeting, but extend it maybe over a few weeks and hear everybody speak, because that's one of the proofs of what Prabhupada, the depth of what Prabhupada gave, that it's not generational. It pervades the entire world and gives everyone an opportunity to enter into the same realm of the spiritual world. So if we were to then hear from everyone here, we'd find the same quality of spiritual appreciation for what Srila Prabhupada's given. Thank you very much, everyone, for all that you're doing all over the world. Please be a kind friend to all living beings. And I propose that we go on distributing the great gifts that Srila Prabhupada's given us in their many forms and work together in cooperation. Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.